You go into any team and you think you're the best guy, it's just going to hurt you because nobody's going to respect you. Nobody's going to trust you because they then perceive you as, hey, like that guy thinks he's better than me, so screw him. So for me, it's being humble and understanding that, again, you're not perfect. You're not a robot. You're not programmed, right? Like you still have something to prove.
What's going on, guys? This is Brain from Advancement Hockey Advising here. Today we have a very special interview here with AHA's very own Travis Hyde. Now, for those of you who don't know Travis, he has been part of the AHA team since almost the beginning. He's AHA's lead US advisor, so he basically handles most of the clients that come from the US because he's an expert in that field. He's also currently a head coach at Oswego State University's ACHA D1 team, which is a pretty good ACHA D1 team. And he's only about 26, if I'm not mistaken. He's a few years younger than me, I know that. He's probably gonna give me some heat on this one for messing up his age, but he's very young and he's already at that position at the college hockey level as a head coach. Honestly, Travis really does know what he's talking about. You know, he's in that position for a reason. I always get tremendous value talking to Travis, and I hope you guys do too out of this interview here. Before we dive into this interview though, as always, just a quick reminder to absolutely destroy that like button, and for doing that, here's a picture of a baby rabbit. Aww. Glad you guys like that stuff. If you guys want to see more content like this, if you like these kind of videos here, consider hitting that subscribe button and notification bell so you never miss another video moving forward. All right, guys, without further ado here, let's dive right into the interview with Travis. All right, Travis, it's good having you here for a second time on the show. How you doing today?
Pretty good, Pearl. How are you, man?
I'm good. Can't complain here in Montreal. Beautiful weather. But yeah, let's dive right into it here. So why don't you tell the viewers that didn't see maybe our past interview a little bit about yourself, you know, your hockey background and what you're doing now as a coach?
Sure, yeah. So currently head coach, general manager, Oswego ACHA, upstate New York, Division I ACHA at the club level. You know, really cool program that we have up there. Great facility, great university support. So very happy to be there. Grateful for the opportunity. You know, and what got me there in the past, took over at Ohio University as a graduate assistant coach back in COVID year. So it was at 2019, 2020, did a little bit of AAA and skill stuff between then and now, you know, and then playing wise, just like anybody else, right? Like started playing when I was 3 years old and fell in love with the game, couldn't get enough, wanted to drive the Zamboni, you know, did a little bit of refereeing. So I've been around the game my whole life. And, you know, after kind of the playing days were over, going through college and, you know, kind of realized coaching was kind of the next step. So, you know, here we are as a, you know, college coach, and then also, you know, doing a little bit of advising on the side as well.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. I remember last time when we interviewed, I'm not sure if you were coaching AAA at that time or if you were coaching at the college level, but I know you made a big jump to Oswego D1 ACHA as a head coach. And I think that's pretty significant considering the fact. How old are you now, Travis? You're like 26, 27?
I'm only 27. Yeah. So
yeah, that's it.
Yeah, a lot of my guys are, you know, mid 20s, 23 to 25, and it's tough. It has its challenges, but, you know, we embrace the opportunity. Like we kind of have, you know, the eye to eye kind of approach to things. Like I value their opinions gratefully. So it's good. It's a really good dynamic that we have.
Yeah. And how do you go about balancing that? That was one of my follow-up questions here, like comparing being a player and a coach, but how do you balance that as a younger coach because you want, like, you can relate to them probably a little bit better since you're younger, but how do you balance that without losing their respect or letting them like kind of walk all over you in a way, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's a really good question. For me, it's about trust, right? Like, you know, if they can't trust you, you can't trust them, then nothing's going to work. Right. So that's kind of the first, you know, thing that needs to be accomplished in no matter what you're trying to accomplish, right? Whether it's just getting to know them, right? Trying to implement your systems, trying to do some skill work, doesn't matter what it is. Like they have to be able to trust you and you have to be able to trust that they're going to listen to what you're saying. Right. So, you know, for me, it's, you know, the player to coach didn't really change that much. So when I was a player, like I was always trusting my coaches. I was always trusting their opinions and their perspectives. I was trusting my teammates to kind of do what they're supposed to do and hold themselves accountable in their own tasks and jobs and roles of the team, you know, and now that I'm coaching, I expect much of the same. Right. And the guys know that they recognize that, you know, I value everybody equally. You know, everybody has a voice and an opinion to accomplish a goal together. And, you know, for me, that's what really helps to build the trust is just making sure everybody has their voice and everybody is in it for the same purpose.
Yeah. And I think that if the players see that, if they see that you trust them, they trust you, you're doing all the right things as a coach, I don't think age is too big of a factor at that point. If you have the proper boundaries in place, if there's a proper respect there, obviously you want to be friends with them and connect with them, especially if you're young, it's good. But if you maintain that trust, those boundaries and everything, I don't think it's that big of a factor, in all honesty.
Yeah, and I think boundaries is a good word too. And one of the challenges that I found as a younger coach, and this is something I knew when I kind of started coaching, because I had a guy who brought me under his wing who had been 30 plus years, and Mike Beavis, who's with Odessa and the Null and the Texas Roadrunners, the NA3, and he told me, he goes, "Hey, Trav, like, you can't be their best friend. You got to find the line of being a friend and being a coach." And, that was always the biggest challenge for me when I first started. And, now that I've kind of separated the gap a little bit, it's become a little easier naturally. But, there's still kind of that, the player to coach connection, the players coach connection of, you got to be there and, compassionate to the guys. You got to be able to love and understand kind of where they're coming from, because, especially at the college level, they're in classes, they're in school, they have a social life, and, they're away from their families most of the time. Like, it's a difficult thing, right? So you have to be able to relate and understand, but also have the boundary and separation of like, hey, I still am your coach.
And do you find, like, I know you've done assistant coaching before too, and you just transitioned to head coaching now. Do you find like there's a big difference in terms of being an assistant coach and a head coach, in terms of how much of those boundaries are there with the guys? Like, are you more?
Yeah, I mean, maybe a little bit,
Yeah,
maybe a little bit more. The reason is because a lot of the time the assistant coach is almost like a middleman in a way.
That's
Like they kind of hear some of the things that are going on, some of the drama maybe before it really gets to the head coach.
Yeah.
And then a lot of the time he's the one that's telling the head coach. So, that's really, from my perspective, the only difference. But as far as, the boundary of like, hey, I'm still your coach, like assistant coach, head coach, video coach, to me, it doesn't really make much of a difference. You respect them the same way.
Yeah, has to be there. And speaking of middlemen, let's transition to the advising. So, as like, as a lot of people know, the advisor is kind of like that middleman between the coaches and the GMs of the teams and the players, right? The guy that the players want to talk to if they want to just vent or get something off their chest that they wouldn't necessarily say to the coach. So that being said, how did you kind of transition into advising? How'd that all kind of come about?
It wasn't ever something that I really wanted to do at first. Like, I wanted to play as long as I could. I wanted to drive the Zamboni, like I said. And I had those opportunities. Like, I could have worked at some rinks and, accomplished that goal that I set out when I was 5 years old, but didn't want to do that when it came down to it. And advising kind of, came about as a way to give back, right? Like a way to help some families, help some players navigate the obvious insane world of hockey that we now have with all of these camps and clinics and different avenues that you can go, different leagues, different levels. Like, it's nuts. Like, it's grown so much over the last few years, and it's made it so difficult for, people that don't necessarily have the knowledge of, how to navigate it. So, for me, I was kind of in the same boat as a player, is I didn't really have the navigational tools. I was thankful that I had a couple coaches that, kind of understood it a little bit better than some, and they were able to help me. But, for me, I recognized the need of wanting to give back, and here was a really good way to kind of do that, and then also still stay in hockey as well in a different form.
Yeah, for sure. That's kind of how it came about with me. At first, I was like, no, I don't want to do advising or whatever. I kind of just want to keep playing hockey, maybe do coaching, but advising wasn't really on the radar. And then after I graduated from undergrad, I was just like back home, and I was helping like some local players, answering their questions, helping them on the ice and stuff like that. And I was doing this just all for free, not really charging anything, just helping them out, answering all their questions. And it just kind of snowballed and became this thing. It's like, this is something, like, there's actually a really big need here. And I remember back when I played junior hockey, I had a couple of advisors. They weren't very good. And then I had a third one that was really, really solid. And honestly, I credit him for getting me the NCAA D3 commitment that I did. And just that difference, I was like, wow, like, I was thinking back at that. I was helping these players. I feel like there really is something here that's valuable. So I have a similar journey as you. Wasn't thinking of it at first, but it kind of just transitioned into it naturally.
Yeah. And I think that's another point too, going off of that is, you mentioned you had two that didn't really work out. The third one did. Right. And, for me, it comes back to, the last couple questions, 1 or 2 questions ago that we talked about, and, my dynamic with my players and the ability to gain their trust, right? Like, you have to trust your advisors. And there's a lot of people, advisors, coaches, skills coaches, doesn't matter what it is, that are out there that are going to tell you what you want to hear. And they're going to try to feed you, some information that maybe isn't true, or maybe, is kind of contradicting to what you believe. And for me, that's another big ticket item as to why I wanted to get into advising, and why I'm an advisor now is, I'm a no BS kind of guy. Like, I'm honest, I'm transparent. If I don't think you're capable of playing at this level, like, it might be hard to hear, but you're going to hear it from me, because to me, I think honesty is the best value. And, it's something that I've learned along the way, is there's some people that they don't believe that. So that's another big one for me, for sure.
No, for me too. Honesty is like number one. I think that's the best way to build trust with people. Obviously, it's hard to tell kids sometimes, like, listen, I just don't see you playing at that level. But I think there's a way to be honest and not be too blunt where it just like completely shatters a kid's dreams. But I think there's a way to be honest and frame it in a nice way that's like, it does sting a little bit, but it's uplifting in a way. Like, maybe if a kid says, hey, I want to play in the USHL, and you look at their resume, it's just not there. Say, listen, I think that league just out of reach right now, but maybe we could try things like the EHL or the USPHL Premier or things like that. I think if you're honest in that way and you frame it right, I think that's the best way to build trust with people.
Yeah, it's building blocks, right? It's building blocks to everything. It's, what's your end goal? What do we have to do to get there, right? It's not just going to be that, immediate jump to the top of the ladder.
So, all right. So transitioning into my next thing here. So I know you're a big skills guy. You're big on the off ice. You're big on the on ice player development. So let's start with the on ice stuff. What do you think are like the top 3 on ice skills that, players in general should be focusing on?
It's broad. It's tough, right? Like, there's so many things that you need to be a high level elite quality player, right? So, it's tough to give just 3. So for me, like, I kind of break it down into 3 with an additional B, right? So a 1A, 1B, 2A, 2B, 3A, 3B.
Okay.
For me, number 1 is skating, right? Like, you got to be able to skate. You got to be able to move your feet. You got to be able to, keep up with the play, obviously. Otherwise, you can't do the rest of the things. So for me, skating ability is number 1. And then, the 1B off of that is, your puck skills while skating. So can you, a lot of guys can skate, guys and girls can skate full speed, 110% without the puck, and, say a back check, for example, right? But can you skate that efficiently when the puck is on your stick, right? So for me, that's huge. 2A, I guess, so to say, is the awareness, the IQ, right? Of, do you know the game? Do you understand what's going on? And then, 2B being, the awareness of, do you know where to go next, right? So what's going on in the present, and then what's going to go happen in the future. So, similar to the old Wayne Gretzky, the legend himself, of, go where the puck's going to be. Right. That's number 2A and 2B for me. And then 3A, 3B is just their overall competitiveness. Are they willing to battle? Are they willing to, give 110% all day, every day, and do what it takes to, essentially make things happen. Right. Like, a lot of players that I see that, don't make it to the highest level that they're capable of making, truthfully, is because, they're waiting for other people to do it for them. Whether it be, winning a battle in a corner, or whether it be initiating a rush, or, just working the extra little step, the extra little bit to make things happen, right? That's something that, I see as a downfall to some players that really truly have very good, IQ, awareness, skating ability, puck skills, but they lack that extra piece of their competitive nature just to go make things happen.
Yeah, 100% agree with all those 3 points. Super important. The competitiveness is true. Like, it's not a skill per se, but it's that you see it in players, like that extra drive, that extra push to get better, to fight for the puck, to make things happen on the ice. You see it on the ice. I don't know how to describe it, but you can just tell when a player's got that. And the greatest athletes in the world, they have that. You just, outside of hockey, you think of in basketball, like you saw Michael Jordan had that, Kobe Bryant had that as well. All those guys in hockey, like Sidney Crosby, McDavid, they all have that extra competitive drive that they really go. So that's super important. I also liked your point about skating is one thing, but skating with the puck, that's totally a different skill. And it's true. You see these guys, they're great skaters, go around their edges, they wheel around out there, but once you get the puck on them, they're not as effective anymore. Sure. So that's a great skill to work on as well. And then the third one, hockey IQ, every coach always mentions that, but I like your take on it, where hockey IQ with the puck and making nice plays is one thing, but then the hockey IQ to get open in the open spaces is also super important. And a lot of players miss out on that skill because it's not talked about that much. But you look at, like, off the top of my head, Stamkos is really good at that. That's why he's great at scoring, right? Because he can find like the soft area and get open, and he's got a great shot too. But he gets in that area to get the pass and to make the shot. So I think, yeah, three great points that you mentioned, Travis.
Yeah, and I think going back to making things happen, another prime example, you talk Michael Jordan, some of these other guys in other sports, right? Fresh off the top of the head is Cal McCarr, right? Like everybody's talking about how good he is, and that he's the next number one defenseman up and coming. Like it's all true, and you watch him in a game, the puck's always on his stick. He's always the one initiating the plays. He's always the one joining the rush. Like he makes things happen because he trusts, right? He trusts his IQ and his awareness. He trusts his skating ability. He trusts his puck skills, right? So like, if I'm adding a 0.4 to on ice, it's also just trusting yourself. It's knowing that you have the ability to do these things, and then getting outside your comfort zone and recognizing like, hey, like, if I make a mistake, like I have teammates that I also trust who can support me. I have coaches that aren't going to come barreling down my neck saying, hey, like, why did you do that? Why did you screw up? It's, hey, nice effort. It didn't work for you, but I like the idea.
No, for sure. It's nice having a coach that's like that, because not every coach is like that, but when you do, it definitely helps the players have that confidence. And playing with that confidence is so important because you really see the difference in someone's game. Like two players could have the exact same skill, or even like the same player has that set of skill. He's a good player. When he's playing confident, he's on top of the world. He's dominating all that stuff. But the same player, if he's playing not confident, you don't see them out there, so talk to us a bit about the confidence. Where does that come from? How can players kind of foster that confidence to really, be at their best selves and play their best out there?
Yeah. Confidence isn't built overnight. Like it's built over time. It's built over consistent, constant habits. And, you're going to have to fail, and you're going to have to learn from your failures in order to build confidence. If you think you're going to do everything perfect, if you think, you're going to go about every practice, every drill, every repetition and do it to the top percentile of, A, yourself, B, your team, 3, your level of play, it's just not going to happen. Right. So, for me, building confidence is, accepting your failures, understanding maybe why you failed, the reasons to why you failed, and, learning from them and trying to better those failures. Right. And then, obviously within trying to better those failures, it's still staying true to what you're good at. Right. And believing like, hey, here's my strengths. We're good here. I can continue to do those better, but here's some things that maybe I need to work on. And all of those things, if I work on them, will then equal to the strengths that I already have.
Comes down to having that growth mindset, right? To always want to learn and improve, and being okay with the failures and constantly going through that in practice and in games too. The more you do that, the more your confidence will build over time. So yeah, I agree with you. I think that's where it comes from. So I think that's a good way to transition to my next question here is, what are the top 3 character traits that you look for in hockey players?
Yeah, I think growth mindset is definitely one.
I knew it was going to be on there.
You knew it was coming. Like it's, you can probably see in the way that I speak about, the on-ice skills, the player to coach, all those things encompassed in one. And, for me, it's a growth mindset, 100%. Like, you got to be willing to learn. You got to be willing to accept the things that you're not good at, and nobody's perfect. Nobody's a robot. You're not programmed a certain way to play to a certain capacity, right? Like you have to be able to learn. You have to be able to build on, those good things that you're doing right, those habits that you've already created for yourself, and then continue, right? And just continue to build, put all the blocks up the chart, and just keep working, right? Just keep building. So growth mindset for me is probably the biggest. And then from that, like, for me, obviously the hockey skill, like we said, is big, but not having too much of an ego within that. For me, like if you go into any team and you think you're the best guy, and, you think you're better than the next, or, any of those kind of cliche things that you hear, it's just going to hurt you, because nobody's going to respect you. Nobody's going to trust you, because they then perceive you as, hey, like that guy thinks he's better than me, so screw him. So for me, it's being humble and understanding that, again, you're not perfect. You're not a robot. You're not programmed, right? Like you still have something to prove, right? Something to prove. So, and then 3 is, kind of somebody's integrity, right? And when I'm scouting, I'm recruiting, I'm looking for, future prospects for my team. the first question I ask is their grades. How are they in school? Did you take college classes in high school? What's your GPA? Like, what's your SAT? All those things to me as a college coach matter because, sure, there's a difference of, a 2.7 student to a 3.0 student or a B to an A student naturally, right? Like they had a better grade, sure. But for me, that's a component of their integrity. Like there's some people that just, they could try as hard as they can and they won't get that grade. And we'll understand that in our conversations. But there's also the ones that kind of just get by with the 2.7, right? Like they don't give the full effort. They're not showing up to class every day or not showing up to class on time every day. They're not studying. They're not doing the extra kind of habits, right? That obviously equivalent to that 3.0 or better. And for me, that's then the integrity of, them being coachable. And, we get into practices, like they're just going to go half-assed, and nobody wants that as a coach. You don't want a guy who's going to be there and just go through the motions, right? You want that guy that is going to work as hard as he can and give 110% effort, like I keep saying. So
yeah, for sure. I like all those points, honestly, but the growth mindset and the humble, it almost ties together, like you said. Obviously growth mindset, we talked about a bunch, super, super important. It's a must for sure to become the best player you can be. But staying humble is what allows you to have that growth mindset. Because if you have a huge ego and you can't take in any information, you think you know it all, you think you're the best and all that stuff, you won't take anything to learn. Even if you're at the top and you have that ego, people that have that growth mindset and stay humble will catch up to you eventually. Because if you have that huge ego, you're not going to improve, right? So it's really important to keep that in check. Also, too, people just like you better if you're humble, and if you're just good and and you stay humble. People just respect you that much more than if you have a big ego. So do yourself a favor, please just don't have a big ego. It doesn't help yourself, and it doesn't make your teammates feel better either. So I think that's a really important point.
Yeah, and look, like, to any viewers, to any fans, players that are watching this, there is nothing better than a guy who is barely in the lineup, fourth line, fifth line, and they don't care. They're for the boys. They're one of the best guys in the locker room. They're the one making everybody laugh, dancing to the music, smiling, there's nobody better than that. Yeah. Nobody better.
That's it. Those are the character guys you look for sure in your locker room. May not have the most skill, but they're just so good in the locker room that you want them on your team, and it just goes to show how important the offense stuff really is. Totally agree with you there. Transitioning to the next one, I know you're also big into fitness and you're big into the off-ice stuff. So a quick question I wanted to ask for our viewers there, because not a lot of coaches talk about this that much, but what are 3 like off-ice things that players can focus on to improve themselves, let's say maybe in the off season?
Yeah. And we're in that time right now. So it's
wonderful. Yep.
For me, I kind of, without trying to get too scientific, I look at it somewhat simple, right? Like there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot of things that you can do that is actually going to hurt you more than help you. So for me, the first one, if we're talking specific to weight training, is doing things that are called compound movements. Compound meaning more than one muscle group, right? Like an isolated movement is sitting here and curling your biceps or tricep dips or tricep, pull down, stuff like that. Compounds, squats, deadlifts, chest presses with some dumbbells, anything that involves more than just one singular muscle group. So for me, that's huge, right? Like, you think hockey and the way you skate, right? Like, your lower body, your core, your upper body, everything's in unison. Everything's working together as one. So, the compound movements are huge. So that's my biggest focus if we're talking specific to weight training. And then on more of a scientific base, the word proprioception is something I use a lot with my guys. And I had to explain it to them. None of them really knew what it was. Proprioception in simpler terms essentially is your mind to body connection. You want to say, hey, I want to skate this way, but your body isn't going to let you skate that way because it hasn't been trained to do so. Mm-hmm. So for me, it's, in training right now during this off ice period, think about skating. Most of the time you're only pushing with one leg. Okay. So, do some stability stuff with one leg, stand on a leg and catch a lacrosse ball, throw it back to your teammate or your partner. Do some single leg squats, some plyo squats, some, Bulgarian split squats, stuff like that. That's going to help the mind recognize, hey, I'm only putting all of my weight and stability on my right side of my body. So then when I go and I do my stride in my right leg, the mind's then going to be trained to do that. Hopefully that makes sense.
It does. Like, just don't want to interrupt you, but it's basically proprioception is how your mind sees your body in space. You know, and balance is it's not exactly the same, but it's very, very similar. You know, so doing things that train your balance honestly will train your proprioception, and you'll feel better out there. I noticed, like, I think I started implementing these like in early college, and I really noticed a big difference in my balance out there, how strong I felt on my feet, and just my reaction time, my quickness. All those types of drills that I incorporated in the summer, those really, really did make a big difference. And I feel like in the current hockey world, they kind of get swooped under the rug a little bit, especially the balance, like throwing the lacrosse ball, the reaction drills. Those are so key, and they actually help so much. So definitely a big thing to include in your summer workouts for sure.
Definitely. And then the last one that I have, and sometimes again, this one gets swept under the rug a little bit, is just staying on the ice, right? Like, you know, you're in the summer, like you got to get to the gym, you got to enjoy the summer vacation, but you know, get on the ice when you can, shoot some pucks off ice or lacrosse balls off ice, tennis balls, doesn't matter what it is. But then even more so is feel comfortable playing other sports.
Yeah.
Right? Like play some basketball, play some soccer, right? And all of that is going to connect back to that proprioception of playing in space and, you know, your balance and different things, right? Like basketball, you're shooting and, you know, still 5-on-5. Soccer, you're kicking, just like kicking a skate into the goal, even though you're not allowed to do that, but sometimes you get away with it. And, you know, you got to do those things that all kind of equivalent to, you know, our September to March, right? Like it all goes together.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I'll tell you a quick story on me. So I never really played. I played a lot of soccer when I was young too, but I didn't play other sports as much. I always did in high school, but then I stopped and I didn't really notice it at the time. But now recently I've been playing a lot more sports like basketball, soccer, tennis, like a whole bunch of different variety of sports. Spike ball, really big into that in the summer. It's a lot of fun. But in short, like, I don't skate that much anymore. I try and stay on the ice like somewhat regularly, but not as much, obviously, as when I play competitively. And I definitely notice some sort of a difference, like things that I learned playing tennis or basketball. I don't know what it is, but I feel like those movements somewhat help me and tie it into when I play hockey, even though I don't play as much anymore. I don't know how to describe it, but I feel like playing other sports helps you some way into when you play hockey. I don't know if you agree with me or not, but I feel like it definitely helps a little bit. I don't know why, but yeah.
They're transferable skills, right? Like just like I said, kicking a soccer ball, you got to be able to use your feet and you got to be able to, you know, control a puck if it's in your skates. So that's, you know, just as an example, and you know, that's the reason why, from my perspective, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Well, great stuff, Travis. So I got one more question here before we wrap it up. Always ask this question at the end to everyone, and I always get some really interesting answers. So maybe what's like one piece of advice that you'd like to give young players out there that we haven't really touched on today that you would have liked to receive yourself as a kid back when you were playing?
That we haven't touched on.
Yeah, that's always the hard part, eh?
Yeah. You know, like I said, trust is huge, and I know we've already talked about that, but you know, be willing to learn, be understanding of why coaches, teammates, parents, you know, doesn't matter who it is, why they're trying to teach you this stuff, right? Like, you know, it's only to make you better. It's not to tell you, hey, you suck. You know, it's only to make you better in the version you're trying to be. And, you know, for me, it's just trusting that process of, you know, staying humble and staying willing to learn and, you know, just trying to get better every day. You know, for me, it's one of my philosophies as a coach. And it was when I was a player is, you know, in the back of my head, I was always just trying to be better every day. You know, I think if you can recognize what that means and value it and stay humble within it, I think it's something that can really set you up for, you know, a good amount of success in whatever, you know, avenue that you want to obtain.
No, I agree with you. I think it's a great way to end off, because even if like the coach or the parents, sometimes they can yell at you or whatever, even if the message isn't delivered well, if you're able to somewhat extrapolate any kind of benefit from that for your own growth, and by staying humble is how you do that, I think that's how you really, you know, can improve and succeed moving forward. So I think it's a great way to kind of finish it up. So Travis, I know you're a busy college hockey coach here. You're probably recruiting heavy in the summer right now. So I'll leave you to it. Thanks so much for coming on. We really appreciate your time. I hope I know the viewers are definitely going to appreciate all the things you said and the golden nuggets that you kind of dropped in the conversation here. So thanks again, Travis. We really appreciate having you.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you. All right, guys, that is a wrap for the interview here. Hopefully you guys enjoy this interview. I definitely did. I always love talking to Travis. That's why he's a core part of our team here. He's always a good reference to talk to. Anything about hockey, mindset, life, all that kind of stuff, as you guys seen. So if you guys like this video, and if you haven't already, consider destroying that like button again. And if you do, and if you haven't already, you just destroy that like button now. Here again, once again, a picture of that baby rabbit. Aww. Hopefully you guys enjoy that stuff. Also too, if you're new here and if you haven't seen these videos before and you want to see more of this, consider hitting that subscribe button and notification bell so you never miss another video moving forward. Also too, if you have any questions, anything you want to talk to us about whatsoever, consider dropping a comment down below or sending us a private email at info@ahadvising.com and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. All right guys, that's it for the video. Thank you so much for watching. We'll catch you on that next one.